All right, everybody, welcome back to On the Fritz. I'm your host, Fritz Spencer, and I am here with the lovely Maria Derchi Russo today. Maria, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited as well.
That's going to be great. I'm glad that we're going to go around all kinds of rabbit holes and talk about whatever we want today. But to start us off, I'd love if you could just give a brief intro to yourself.
Okay. So, Maria Derchi Russo, as you said, I'm born and raised in Miami, have left twice and keep ending up back here.
Boomerang.
Two-time boomerang. If for those from Miami, you'll relate that you always find a way of making your way back here. My background is Puerto Rican. Kind of worked in the start of my career in marketing and tech companies, and then kind of stayed in tech in different roles, most recently in venture capital and in running a tech media
publication
and community here.
Awesome. So many things to dive into.
And huge animal lover. I can't forget to say that because,
the dogs,
we
right?
share a love of animals.
Especially, and your two dogs, please, obviously, you have to introduce them.
Of course, sorry. So I have a 13-year-old Dachshund named Chester and a 7, about to turn 8-year-old Chihuahua mix named Maya.
So girl and boy.
Girl and boy, yeah.
Oh.
I used to have a third. I always feel weird not mentioning him. He passed away about a year and a half ago. He was a Maltese named Gnocchi.
A gnocchi.
Yeah.
Sounds Italian.
Yeah.
Great. Let's hop right into, maybe the early stages where you kind of started to get into tech. Like, I'm a huge tech nerd. I may be an accountant by trade, but I'm a programmer by night, right? So maybe a little bit about what interests you to kind of go down that path.
Yeah. So in college, actually, I did an internship at an ad agency, but they had asked you what department in the ad agency you wanted to work in, and I was kind of just open. I wasn't really sure where I wanted to be. I wasn't necessarily like on the creative side, so I figured it would be either like account management. And I got assigned to digital marketing, and I was studying marketing at the time. So what I loved about it was comparison to what we think of in traditional marketing, where you put up a billboard or a TV commercial, especially back in those days, you couldn't really track the performance. And that always made me feel uneasy, where it's like, okay, as soon as budgets get cut, they're going to go to the thing that they really can't track. But as the emergence of digital marketing started to come up, the ability to really show the impact of the ads was like so appealing to me. So I really loved the internship. I think our biggest client at the time was like Dunkin Donuts. So this was in Boston. Dunkin Donuts is a big Boston company. Yeah.
Everything's about to come full circle.
Yeah. Really?
I swear. Yeah.
So I think this is the time where they had launched like On the Run, like campaign. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah. Dunkin' on the Run.
So a lot of it was around placing digital ads around that campaign. And I just fell in love with the trackability. And so as I was graduating, I knew that's what I wanted to continue doing. I started applying for jobs everywhere, and I was willing to move anywhere. I was probably staying within the U.S., and I happened to get a job for a company that was like a travel website that had come up right before the dot-com boom, survived the dot-com boom, and had a main office in New York, but they had a small Miami office. And the head of marketing happened to be based in their Miami office. And so they asked me, they're like, well, would you move back to Miami? And I was nervous at first because if you're, from here, kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. You get out and you're like, oh, no, I want to like go other places. But I really was intrigued by the role. And so I said yes and moved back to Miami and found it to be a very different city than I had left. And was living on the beach, working in Brickell. Brickell was starting to emerge as more of like a young professional scene. And I loved it. And so and I loved the role. It was, again, in digital marketing, running all of our marketing campaigns. And they had a massive budget at the time. It was like we would spend $1 million a month on digital ads. And the fact that they were trusting this woman right out of college to manage $1 million was like, it was overwhelming.
It must have been working.
Yeah, exactly. And you had to prove it. So it was a really exciting time. But I think it just got me. I know people traditionally think of tech of like programming and coding, but I feel like digital marketing was kind of my foray into it.
Well, data analytics alone
yeah.
is a huge piece of it, and getting the ROI tracking out of things and seeing how I mean, people don't realize that every email that they receive probably has like a pixel in it that's
Yeah.
giving them details that they don't even know about.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, I just recently started an emailing system for an app that I'm building, and I didn't realize it, but it's like telling me when they open it, if they clicked links, like if they, did they delete it, like all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, it was fascinating to be able to like see the shift in how marketing dollars were spent. So much more and more they were going towards digital marketing versus some of the more traditional channels. So it was a really exciting place to be, a great culture. So I was there for a while, for probably 7 years. And in that time, I moved to Chicago for grad school, but they had a Chicago office. So thankfully I stayed with the company and did grad school while I was there. And then when I was in grad school is when I started getting like this startup itch where I was, it was a really exciting time. Like things like Y Combinator were very popular. And I, at that time, attempted to start a startup with a classmate of mine. And it was a really exciting experience. And we worked on it while we were in taking classes. Decided at the end of that we probably weren't going to continue pursuing it. But I feel like that's what just really prompted it. So when I moved back to Miami after grad school, a guy that I'd gone to grad school with reached out and was like, I'm starting a company. He had originally started in Chicago, but said he's moving to Miami to really launch it there, and he wanted me to join. And so I joined that company, and I ended up being there about a year, but it was it solidified, like, this is the world I want to be in.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I just became fascinated with all things.
So
tech and startups.
did you live in Boston, New York, and Chicago separate times? Like living there, or were you working there? Like
I never lived in New York.
Okay.
I would travel there a lot for the New York company. But I lived in Boston for undergrad, Miami for 3 years after undergrad, Chicago for grad, and then back to Miami after that. And
okay, so that's the boomeranging.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's the full circle moment for me is actually I have to thank Dunkin Donuts. Big shout out. Hopefully
huge
soon.
Sponsor.
Yeah, huge. Going to be future huge sponsor. They are responsible for me meeting my wife.
Stop.
Yes. So
How?
she was working there, and I would go in and bother her every day for months. And this was during COVID.
Oh my God.
So we were like wearing masks. She
didn't know what your teeth looked like.
She literally thought I might not have teeth, and she may have even known that I played hockey. So that's a real concern.
Yep.
But no, when we met, she spoke a little bit of English, and I spoke a very little bit of Spanish. So yeah, there was a huge language barrier. So
it's the blue eyes. She's like, I'm mesmerized.
All masked, just blue eyes. Thank God for that and caramel coffee, because that was the first. I mean, she knew the menu in English backwards and forwards. And then, so yeah, we met there, and then I remember there was one time when I asked for her number, and she told me no, I don't think so, and I didn't go back for 2 weeks.
You were hurt?
I was at work.
You somehow found a way to get there every other day before that.
We have differing opinions on whose version of the story is more accurate.
Okay.
But I eventually went back. And she was not happy that I waited so long to go back. But it all worked out. But
how long after that did it take to get her number?
Instant, the same day.
Okay. She's like, I don't want him to go another 2 weeks and not coming back.
No. And so she literally I ordered the same thing every day. And she had been, for at least a couple of days, making it, thinking that I was going to show up. I know.
What a good story.
It's really it's a Hallmark movie.
It really is.
So maybe one day we'll write that.
Yeah.
I'm getting choked up now.
Oh
Anyway, so yeah, the Boston, running on Dunkin', you're coming home to Miami. You mentioned that it was a different city when you returned. I'm curious, how was it different?
Honestly, every time, the 2 times I moved back, I discovered it to be a different city. I mean, I'll give you some more context. Well, I grew up in what would be considered the suburbs of Miami in this area called Kendall. Which kind of growing up there, going to school there, leaving, and then moving back and living on the beach, working in Brickell. It's very different than living with your parents in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of living in the center of the city. And so that alone was a big shift. And I had, started to see this emergence of this more young professional community in Brickell. Brickell was developing more and more. And so many things were being built. You would look out the window and there was just, you couldn't count the amount of cranes that were out there.
Oh, yeah.
And so all these beautiful buildings popping up in Brickell and so many more people living in Brickell. I remember when I was little, you would not go to, like, there was no Brickell. You would go to downtown and it was sketchy and you had to be very careful. I remember once I had just gotten my driver's license and I had kind of lied to my mom and I said I was only going to drive to my friend's house and then her mom was going to drive us to this concert downtown.
Classic.
Yeah. And when I get to her house, I was like, well, maybe I should just drive us to the concert. So I drive us to the concert. I, at the time, was driving, this is going to age me, an 89 Honda Accord.
Hey, that could be, I drive, an 01 Ford.
Yeah.
We don't know what year it is.
But what I love, it had the flip-up lights.
Oh, yeah, the little eyes.
It looked alive.
You wink.
Yes. So I drove it to the concert. We go at the James L. Knight Center, which is still a concert hall that exists in downtown Miami. Very different. There was nothing around it at that point. There was like a surface lot in front of it that we parked in. Have a great time. Come out of the concert. Go to the car. I had left the lights on. My car was totally dead.
No.
And I'm like, oh, this is the karma that I get for lying to my mom. Now I am going to get killed in downtown Miami. Thankfully, somebody was nice enough to see these two young girls who had no idea what they were doing, help me jumpstart the car. And I still think my mom does not know to this day that I lied to her. Sorry, Mom.
Mom, if you're listening, we're so sorry.
You just, but all that to say, it had been transforming. And even, to this day, you've seen it. Like, you still can't count the number of cranes. And it's every time we're now in Wynwood, I drive to Wynwood and I'm like, when did that building go up? So it's been, it's been incredible to see how the city has changed and developed and brought so many new faces and cultures. I think predominantly then it was, I always say I consider myself an honorary Cuban because growing up in Miami, I never lived in Puerto Rico. I didn't have a Puerto Rican accent, but growing up in Miami, that was the culture. Yeah. But now it's a diverse, everybody's like, oh, it's so diverse. It is very diverse in certain cultures, like Latin culture. Yeah. A lot of people gripe about we don't have good Asian food, good Asian supermarkets, which I think we're trying to get better at. But I feel like now there's Colombians and Argentinians and Brazilians, and there's more than just the Cuban culture. But yeah, it's been incredible to see the city change.
It's definitely culturing that melting pot vibe that New York kind of has, and even New York's is kind of one way, and we have a different way. But yeah, it's so nice to be down here because my wife loves it because there's a lot of Venezuelan people. She's Venezuelan. She feels like her people are here with her, right? And when, local news or not local, the global news recently with, what's happened, it was a crazy, crazy day for, Venezuelans. I remember her waking me up in the middle of the night, they got Maduro. And I was like, what did Trump do now? But we don't have to go down that road. I'd love to go back down your road and kind of what happened next, especially once you were, going down this tech route and then how that kind of led you into venture.
So after leaving that startup, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, if I was going to stay in marketing, if I wanted to start a company. I was kind of started to do freelance work, and I had been a part of a friend of mine had started a tech community years before. I had been a part of it. I'd gone to the events. He had built this incredible community. And we were working on a project together, and he said he needed someone to help him. He really wanted to bring in someone to run the day-to-day because he had his own company. He was running a dev shop. It was always kind of a passion project of his. And I said, I'm currently freelancing. This sounds like something fun to do while I figure out what I'm going to do next. And I fell in love with it. And the community was incredible. Bringing founders together and tech professionals together. At the time, it was mostly just meetup events. And I just really, really loved it. And so I thought the people I went to grad school would think I'm crazy because they're like, you just got all these student loans and now you're going to go work for a nonprofit. This is the opposite of the direction you should be going into. But I was like, you know what? This is a cool opportunity. And thank God, because it led me to all these other things. So I started running the organization. For about 2 years, I was doing it full time, and then joined the University of Miami for 1 year, helping entrepreneurs there, students, faculty, and alumni that wanted to start a business. We would pair them with mentors and access to resources. But amongst the time that was running the nonprofit, a woman who had just started a venture fund reached out to me, and she's like, I love the work that you're doing at the community is called Refresh Miami. She's like, I love the work you're doing there. Would you come do it for me at the fund? I'm about to start a fund. And I had just accepted the role at UM, and I'm like, I can't. Like, I just took this role. And so she's like, okay, fine. So then like 6 months later, she's like, how about now?
What about now?
And I'm like, oh, I can't be at a role for less than a year. Like, no, now it's not right the time. Then right when a year was hitting, I was like, she approached me again, and I was like, okay, fine. Now is the time to do this. So
I'm glad she was persistent.
Yeah, she was. She's if you know her, she's Laura. She's very persistent. And so at a year, I decided to join. The fund is called the Venture City. So that was my foray into the VC world. Never thought I would get into venture. I always pictured it to be really hard, and it is a hard industry to get into. And I didn't come from a finance background. I didn't come from a consulting background. I'm like, how does a woman who's running this nonprofit end up in venture? But there was so much overlap because the whole time in running this community, all I was doing is like trying to figure out how do we help founders here? How do we get them access to resources, whatever they need to build their businesses, which is very synonymous with venture. So spent 2 years there. Then another local VC reached out to me, and I joined them and spent 5 years there, which is called Florida Funders. Funny, people are like, oh, how did you end up with that role? I'm like, Miami Tech had started, this was 2021, it was getting very hot. And they sent me a DM on Twitter. And they're
no way. A Twitter DM?
Yeah, Twitter. They slid into my DMs.
That's unreal.
And I was just like, what is this? And I had kind of heard of them, but I wasn't like familiar with the team because they were mostly in Tampa.
They sent you up?
Yeah. What is it? WYD?
Just you up, yeah.
So that's how I ended up there. And it's been a wild ride, and I've learned so much. And I've gotten to work with so many incredible founders. And so it's been so much fun. I can't believe people pay me to do this type of stuff.
It's an incredible space to work in. And since I'm right there with you, I know exactly how you feel, especially working with founders every day, all day. It's like, it's a different type of energy.
Yeah.
And, and I want to talk more too about your work with Refresh, because I know that's now what you've really transitioned to full time. So maybe kind of like where it started, where things kind of pivoted, and then how you went back.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Refresh Miami was started by a gentleman named Brian Breslin in 2006. And so he had a similar story to myself, where he was born and raised in Miami, left for college, moved back, was really excited about tech and startups, wanted to meet other people who were excited about it. And there wasn't anyone who was convening those people. He says he would go to like a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and they were like, look at him sideways, like, who are you?
Why are you here?
Yeah, what is
we do
this
real
startup?
estate.
Yeah. And so he innocently was like, puts up a post on a forum and says, hey, who wants to talk tech and startups? I'll be at the Starbucks on the corner of X and Y.
Yeah.
And that day, 4 people show up, 4 or 5 people.
Hey.
And yeah, he was like, okay. And he just started doing that month over month. And he eventually integrated speakers who would give talks on different topics. And then slowly but surely, other events started popping up that he wasn't necessarily the organizer of. And so what I really appreciate about what he did, it wasn't ever about just the things that he was doing. He always saw the importance of like, let's bring everything together.
The ecosystem.
Yeah, like rising tides mentality.
I love that.
So he put together a newsletter and a website where he would aggregate the events as they were starting to pop up. Then he started aggregating jobs and resources. So it could be like the one place that people could easily understand what was happening here. And it, resonated. It would grow year over year. And so I took it over in 2015. We would get bigger and bigger events, and it was always like I would always get a high of like, what speaker can I land this month? And there was a period of time where we were kind of run through all like the main speakers in Miami, and I'm like, it was kind of getting stale.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to start like just cold reaching out to some people on LinkedIn. And we got some incredible
So
speakers.
you were sliding into DMs.
It was my turn to slide into people's DMs. And it was incredible. Like, people were really receptive. Obviously, a free trip to Miami we would cover their travel. Not first class by any means. So,
yeah,
but
the bus.
Yeah, Miami is not a hard place to convince people to go, particularly if you're asking them in the winter. But I thought that it was an incredible opportunity to bring some people that the community didn't usually get to hear from. And so one of our, I would say, most successful events was we brought in Jason Calacanis, and he had written a book at that point called Angel. So we brought him in for a talk, and then we had a few startups pitch. And he had 0 investments in Florida at this time.
Wow.
It was kind of, I think...
Not shocking. But.
Yeah. I think even in his book, he said, like, no, I will never invest in Florida. Or I don't know if it was Florida in particular, but he was, like, very adamant about it. And a few of the companies pitched, and he ended up making... He wasn't required to make an investment in any of them, but he ended up... He had his accelerator, and he ended up accepting a few of them into his accelerator and then investing in them.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, this was like a direct benefit. Like, this worked.
Another full circle moment. Yeah.
And so that was really rewarding. And I think one crucial decision we made was around 2018, there was a woman who had been at the Miami Herald for many years. She was their main tech reporter. She was like, she is the heartbeat of our ecosystem. She's so passionate about the work she does and the stories that she tells about local founders. Everybody knew her and knows her and wants her to write about their startup. So she was doing an incredible job writing all these stories at the Herald. We would feature a lot of her stories in our newsletter. And we had noticed the Herald was like cutting back more and more its coverage of tech news. Obviously, it's the media space, newspaper space is very hard. And so it was getting hit by a lot of cuts. And so they were kind of cutting back tech coverage because it wasn't as lucrative as like general interest stories. And she decides to leave the Herald. And we...
On her own.
Yeah. She's like...
No DM.
No. And we freak the hell out. We're like, well, she's the only one. She's like, she's the only one telling our stories. That's going to create a huge gap. And what do we do? And so I still remember where I was. I think I sent a message to Brian at the time. It was like, what if we build out a news side of the business? He's like, yeah, that sounds great. I like text her. I was like, hey, do you have a few minutes to chat? She thankfully agrees to chat. And I pitch her on the idea. And I say, well, if we build out a news arm, will you continue your work of telling the Miami Tech story? And thank God she said yes. And
no hesitation?
Nothing. She's like, I'm in.
She was looking for it. Okay, that's great.
I think if you know her, she's just so passionate. And so she started the news section in 2018, has since brought on a team of like freelance writers who tell the story of everything that's happening here. And I think that's probably what most people know us for, is like our coverage of what's happening through their reporting. And so grateful for her and all the other writers that Riley is a huge part of our team. There's Kristen, Anna Yancy, Zane. There's Doreen. Oh my God, I don't want to leave any of them out. But they do an incredible job. And without them, I think a lot of people wouldn't know what was happening here. And there is a lot of great things happening. Sometimes it's hard to know because people are like quietly building. So it's really on us to find out about these folks and to shed light on the work they're doing.
Now, through the course of her writing for you guys and kind of adding this kind of like operational stream, was there any like stories that like almost changed the path of what you were doing, or a story that got so much traction that led so many people to you? Like, is there anything that you guys wrote out there that was like, oh, this is life-changing for us?
I'm not sure. I can't pinpoint a particular story.
Or like a favorite.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry to make you pick a favorite, but
No. I mean, I think one that just pops up more recently is Open Evidence recently moved their offices to Miami. They're killing it right now in the kind of health tech SaaS software space, AI space. So, and the person who started is like pretty well-known person. And so I think that got a lot of people excited. I feel like every time we feel like there's maybe things are quieting down, something else pops up, and it just
The quiet fire somewhere burning.
Sometimes it's because another state is doing something crazy, and but I just it's been more of not any particular story, but just like the steady stream of things.
The slow roll.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's like every now and then there'll be like some big announcement, like
we have unicorns here.
Yeah,
occasionally.
Yeah,
at a right, the right ratio, probably. To be fair.
Yeah, for the size of our city, I think we punch above our weight.
Yeah, no, we definitely punch above our weight, and people underestimate. So we even come up higher. I think. But then, so on this note of these big successes, especially in the venture space, what was it like going into venture from Refresh? Or with Refresh, kind of like a partnership? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so while I worked in venture, I still was doing Refresh on the side. And thankfully, the funds that I worked for, they understood that there was a lot of overlap and it was like a great benefit. So they were always very encouraging of me being able to like have time for both. Otherwise, it would have been very tough. But, I loved both when I was at and when I was at the fund is like you're looking at the ecosystem from different lenses. It's like when you're at the university, you're looking at it more from a talent perspective and a big institution. And then when you're at the fund, you're looking at it from like much more of like an investment lens. And so I think it helped me be a more well-rounded professional in supporting founders. It's like, okay, now being on the inside and understanding what VCs are looking for and how you can kind of get on their radar, get them to invest, and then the needs of folks post-investment, it helped me be even more, of a better supporter of what they needed. And so bringing that knowledge back to Refresh. Yeah, because I felt like at Florida Funders, I split my time between scouting companies and then supporting the portfolio companies that we had. And it almost just felt like with Refresh, I do that for all founders. Like it's a broader net. With Florida Funders, I can narrow it down just to our portfolio companies. But it was very similar work. So it almost felt very natural. I think the other things that took more understanding is kind of like understanding term sheets and understanding and like kind of negotiating that part, which I wasn't as involved with. We have obviously our team who does that, but it was good to get exposed to that and better understand that. But in terms of the day-to-day work, I felt like it was very similar to the stuff that I always was trying to do at Refresh, but just for like a smaller subset of folks.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the term sheets, you can learn that like one at a time, right? It's a very learnable skill to the due diligence piece of things. And what's really hard is to guide a founder who is like either dead set on something that's probably the wrong direction or kind of floundering, like giving them advice because, half listen, half don't. That they listen to. How did you, interact with founders in a way that you have this broad lens with Refresh and kind of how to help a whole entire community? How did you narrow it down for like one founder building one thing, honed in on that?
I think it's really about being a good listener and then understanding.
All right, I'll stop talking.
Yeah. No. And I at no point ever, said I was an expert on any topic. I'm just like, I'm here to understand what you need and then find you the best person I can for that need. And so it's part therapy, part just listening and kind of, I think I have this skill in my head where it's like, I picture like the Matrix where we're just, or not the Matrix. I forget the movie I'm thinking of. It's a Tom Cruise movie.
Mission Impossible.
No, the one where he's like moving all the things. It doesn't matter. I just picture, like I make all these connections and I'm like, oh, somebody will have said like, oh, I'm really good at this and this, like 2 months ago. And then one of the founders is like, I really need help with this. And I'm like, oh, connect
You're
those
Jarvis. Tony Stark, he's like building the thing.
Yes, I haven't seen it, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
But yes, it's something similar to that. So I feel like I just have this like web in my head where I'm like connecting these dots and I love doing that. And so I think it's just about really trying to be a good listener and then understanding, okay, this person told me this. You're starting to identify trends. Like, okay, a lot of founders seem to be coming to me with a similar challenge. Let me go out and find the best expert on that challenge and bring them to these founders. So I think relationship building, I think I started to understand much more how important that was. Maybe beyond the finance and consulting skills, it's like, how can you, it's a lot of earning the founder's trust, especially in the world of VC, which I think some founders can feel is not as founder friendly, but being that place where that they can go to and ask for help.
Yeah. I think it takes a big leap of faith from both sides, since I sit on the finance piece so frequently. Getting the keys to the castle is like, it's a literal ceremony, right? Because something happens, and I've heard this story with several of like our CFOs, that it's like they had to go so above and beyond in a way that they felt genuine, like no one told them to. They just knew that something needed to be done. They did it in a way that wasn't like requiring, a reward. And then they were like, okay, this person is fully on board with our mission. They've looked out for me in every way possible. Open book. Because sometimes, you meet a founder or even a VC and they're like very close. Like, we'll bring you into the fold when we think you're ready, But to do those, go out of your way to do those things and build that trust is like, to me, it's the most important thing. Yeah. All you have is your word, your integrity, and trust. So,
yeah, and I think it helped because I was doing this, for the broader community. There was a certain level of trust that people already had because they were like, you did this when you had nothing to gain from it.
Yeah.
So now you're potentially helping fund something. So I think there was already people kind of let their guard down because I was kind of somebody they had seen for a very long time supporting them. And so it was much easier when they kind of sometimes would come to me and say, well, I want you on our cap table because I trust you. So that was always really great to feel like, okay, like I've earned someone's trust. They know
That's
that
the
I'm
best
in this
feeling in my eyes.
Yeah.
Especially in a city like Miami, it feels very transactional sometimes. It's tough. Yeah. And so when you can have a real relationship with someone where they're like, he's not selling me something. When is it going to happen? And they're like, what is it? What do you have to gain from this? Why do you do this? Why are you building what you're building? And then you have a serious conversation about it. You're like, I'm building the community. Like, I want to be in this community. This is where I thrive. My skills can come in anytime that you need them, right? But it's Fritz, right? It's Maria. Like, that's who you're dealing with. All right, where were we?
Trust,
building trust. Yes. No, I think that's a culture thing here. The culture here is probably my favorite piece to mention to anyone who's on the outside looking in, because I also was on the outside looking in when I moved here. I moved here to South Florida in 2017, and I remember my first ever job going to, which was an inventory count in Hialeah, and I was one who did not speak Spanish. So the culture, the learning curve, like, I remember trying to count, and he's like, uno, dos, tres, and I'm like, 1, 2, 3, and he's like, please stop, I'll just count. Well, as we're both going at the same time, and it's like, it's a bit of a shock, but it's the fun kind of shock. For me, at least it was. So I'm curious, as someone who's seeing people like me come into the community and, embracing people like me, how does that, feel for someone like you?
I got this question a lot when people started moving here in like 2021, 2022.
Yeah, the COVID phase.
Yeah. And I think my take is generally positive. I love seeing people move here, fall in love with the city, see it through their eyes, see what they love about it. And what I was very happy about was I was nervous when like a lot of these people would move here and they'd get in an Uber, and I'm like, they're not going to, 9 times out of 10, your Uber driver may not speak English. Yeah. And how are they going to handle this? Are they going to come running back to their other city and be like, I can't do this? And not to say that like Miami's the only city where Uber drivers don't maybe speak the language, but what I loved is that so many people loved it. And so even me, I would be like, well, maybe there was someone who moved here and I was like, maybe you should live in Fort Lauderdale. And they're like, no, because Fort Lauderdale, for people who don't spend a lot of time here, Fort Lauderdale is very different than
Yeah,
Miami.
you need a passport to leave
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale to come to Miami.
Yeah,
Like genuinely.
totally.
595 is not a road. It is a border.
Yeah. I know Miami's just like this whole other world from the rest of Florida, but people loved it. They loved the different cultures. They loved the diversity of people's backgrounds and professions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been very happy. I think I really truly love to see the city through other people's eyes and so many people being so passionate about it. So it's been incredible to see that, people. I feel like the most common thing I hear is like, I never thought I would live here, but now like they're like, I never want to leave.
I would never leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And since you were so excited for that change, what's exciting for you that's coming up next? Like what you're working on now and what you're building?
So a big part of my focus this year is we write about the Miami Tech story in articles, but how do we expand that into different formats and with the whole goal of expanding the reach and the audience that we're telling the story to. So I want to make sure that that story continues to be told to wider and wider audiences. I wanted to keep people here excited about all the things that are going on, and then keep people outside of Miami also intrigued and maybe ideally change perceptions. I think the perception has changed significantly since COVID. I think a lot more people take it seriously, but that we still have a lot of work to do. I'm not here to pretend that we are New York or San Francisco, but we are well on our way. And I think we just need to keep our heads down doing the hard work, and everything else will fall into place. So a lot of it is around just continuing to tell the story in ways that I feel like people these days consume the content.
I'm glad that we're bringing people in from these other communities, especially like New York and SF, because nobody here wants SF 2.0. It's Miami 0.0. Like, it's really V1. And I think that's what, some people down here have mentioned. Like, we don't want to build like them. We want to build better than them. And I think we're doing that in the right ways with groups like yours and with kind of seeing what's worked out there, but not copying it exactly like word for word, right? And so it's been exciting to see like how kind of the foundation already looks, because it's been 10 years that I've been down here almost, and it's been a whirlwind of change. So I'm excited to see kind of what is up next. But I want to know maybe if there's one thing that you've kind of noticed, like one major thing that if you could just change it and it would fix a lot of things for like the South Florida tech ecosystem, maybe what's one of those things?
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good question. The two things that pop up top of mind, people say talent, and then, okay, actually they're both talent related, so we'll leave it at talent. And it's not an easy fix. I think some people think it's bringing a world-class like engineering school here, which could definitely help. But then the other side of it is, I know there are folks that want to move here, but we call it like the plan B problem, where they may see a role that they're really excited about here, but they're worried if they move their whole family down, let's say they have a family, and that role doesn't work out, then where do they go from there? And so, one, we don't have as many large corporates here that like tech companies here. So
can't just go back to Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
so
Meta.
It would be great. I think if we had some bigger tech companies with a significant presence here, it would help. It would help the startups attract more talent because they would feel like they have a fallback. And so it's all around the talent piece. It's like kind of early stage talent, but then also maybe some of that senior talent. And it was interesting. We did a study years ago on talent that had left and like what could have brought them back. And I think at that time, I think it's gotten better, but at that time, there were offices for some of these tech companies like Apple, Facebook here, but there were always the LATAM office.
Oh, okay.
And so this talent would say, if we move even if we move to Facebook in Miami, then we're going to be typecasted as a LATAM person. That's going to limit our career prospects.
Got it.
Yeah. So if it has to, it can't just be like, this is, Apple's LATAM. It has to be Apple. And they have to
Apple
feel like
South.
they could, that they can like grow in that role here.
That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the typecasting that would happen just by being down here.
I hadn't either until you did that. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I always thought the main concern was how to attract, younger engineers leaving college and looking at two almost identical offers, but then, one's here and one's in New York or SF. And it's like, well, I can go be around people that are like me, or I can go maybe find people like me in Miami. Like, I think that's where we're struggling.
And also, pay is obviously a very big thing. And like, even I think sometimes they have to take into account that these cities are, they pay a lot more, but they're more expensive to live in. Although I feel like the cost of Miami has outpaced the salary to, significantly in the last few years. So we're kind of, it's not as big of an argument anymore. I think for too long we were like, oh yeah, just like hire people in Miami. You could pay them a lot less. And you're like, oh wait, no.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. And like real estate's gotten so expensive because so many people have moved here. So I think that we need to get better about that. One thing I was saying to someone recently is, and there's certainly still a compromise that you're making to be based here. You might not have the amount of job prospects you would have in New York or San Francisco. So I acknowledge, I'm not here to pretend that that's not a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you were to ask me what my goal is to decrease the level of compromise that people need to make to live here. And that might not be fixed in a year, might not be fixed in 5, but I'm slowly going to chip away at it till the day I die to make this happen. Because I think people love it here and they get it, but I don't want them to feel like they're making such a huge sacrifice. And I don't think it's huge.
What are some of those compromises?
Just like mostly it's around the amount of job prospects.
Oh, outside of, okay, here's my plan A, plan B type.
Yeah, they're like, they want to feel like they can either make the money that they would in another city or like advance in their career as much as they would. But even with that, so many people love it here and they understand that that the trade-off is worth it in a lot of cases. They are much happier down here. They're like, as we start, mental health and like quality of life starts to be more understood and the effects that has, I think people are willing to make that compromise because their life they feel like is so much better here. Yeah. It's just some of these people, and I also feel like, okay, it's okay for people to bounce around. Maybe you might go to New York for this role, learn a lot, advance, and then move back here at some point. So I moved twice. I kept coming back. So I'm not here to be like, we have to keep everybody and nobody can ever leave. I'm like, it's natural. People are going to come and go, and that's fine. Ideally, they make their way back here. But I think over more and more time, people will weigh those pros and cons, and they may choose Miami because it is a wonderful city.
Well, I hope they do. And I think, as we build out for scaling, I think that's another issue is like we don't have a way to reliably scale a huge, startup here when they raise like past Series B or C, right? They're kind of an expectation of, okay, you need to bring this to where we can really scale it with talent, like the networks that they have and other partnerships that they have like out in those areas. So I think if we start working on that here, it'll be a much more friendly place to be like, oh, I don't have to ever leave. Like, oh, I can start here and grow a little bit here, but then I might have to leave. No, you can just stay here and do the whole life cycle.
Yeah. And one thing I do think we also have going for us is we want it so bad that like people just want to help you. Like the whole city is like, let's figure this out. Mm-hmm. There's so many people who are invested in making sure you're successful that it feels that you just feel like you have a lot of support. Yeah. So from government to venture, like we all want to be here. So we're all like, let's make sure we help each other because that's going to help the city grow and us be able to stay here. Yeah,
that's a great point. You see the mayors at literally every conference, every event. Like they're out here like in the trenches with startups sometimes. That's kind of fun. But listen, thank you so much for coming and having this conversation. To leave it off, I'd love to know, like, what's next for you, like, personally? Like, what are you really excited about?
Oh, good question.
Could be walking your dog this afternoon. Like, it doesn't have to be.
Well, I mentioned my birthday is on Saturday.
Oh, let's go.
I'm going on a rock climbing trip with a friend to Puerto Rico.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited for that. I think I just done some rock climbing out west, and it's so great to kind of see your progress. And I got into it only the last few years, and it's just this both physical challenge, but mental. More like in two ways, mental in terms of like it's a puzzle you have to figure out, like where do I put like
physical
the right
chess,
thing? But also just like I'm someone who's grew up with a huge fear of heights.
Really?
And so it's like overcoming the fear part of it. And
oh my God,
if anybody just watched like the whole Alex Honnold scale Taipei 101 last week, and it's like it's very rewarding to feel like you kind of slowly like overcoming these very real challenges.
So is this like a new passion, or
it is a big
that's
big
awesome.
passion.
I hope there's, and you know what, I hope there's a good community around here for that too.
There is. So there's a great gym, Velocity. Shout out to Velocity.
Oh, let's go.
So if anybody wants to go
First
rock
gym
climbing,
sponsor.
let me know. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me on the Fritz.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right. Cool. If you enjoyed this conversation and you hung around to this point, I invite you to put your fist through the like button. I invite you to slap your forehead into the like button. If you could throw everything you have at the like button, I want you to imagine the like button is your childhood bully. Hit it as hard as you can. Don't forget to voice your own opinions in the comments. I welcome feedback. You can find more episodes like this on all the platforms that we have: YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music. Feel free to connect. I'm Fritz Spencer. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of On the Fritz.